Good afternoon. My name is Tommy Brower. I am a member of the FACT board, and today I'm joined by my friend Lou Bolster, also on the FACT board, and we're going to talk a little bit about FACT. So why don't we dive right in, Lou?
Sure.
Why don't you tell us what is FACT and what is your role in it?
Okay, FACT stands for, as an acronym, stands for Fairfield Area Community Theatre. I am currently the vice president of that organization. So, anything else you want on that?
How long have you been involved? Can you give us a brief history of the organization, your involvement in it?
Sure. So, FACT was actually started back in about 1976. So that's going back a while. And it was started back in the final days of Parsons College. Parsons had a well-developed theater program that was headed up by a director named Sid Spade. Sid was known for bringing in well-known actors from the country that he would bring in to be like a headliner in a show and work with the students. And he did that very successfully. A number of people in the community thought this is brilliant and we want in. And so they started to work with Sid, developing a theater program for the community, and that was the community theater, named at the time Fairfield Area Community Theatre. At the end of Parsons College, the end of the 70s, it was boxed up and put in a file drawer. They didn't liquidate the funds. They actually kept a bank account. They had some money in the funding. They had set pieces in storage, costume pieces in storage, but nobody was doing anything. Fast forward, 1989, Fairfield is celebrating its sesquicentennial celebration. A bunch of people in the community got together and said, let's do a show. Great, what are we going to do? Let's do a classic Midwestern show, The Music Man. So, a bunch of people got together, put that show up. We put it on stage at the fairgrounds, at what was called the show ring at the time. Dirt floor, open sides, no lighting. And it was a great show. Community loved it. Afterwards, the people who put that show on got together and said, let's do this again. Let's form a theater company. And somebody said, we have a theater company. It's here in this file drawer that none of us knew about. So it came out of the file drawer, got dusted off, and that was kind of the rebirth of FACT. And so as we've been a producing company ever since.
Well, good. So fast forwarding to now, what is the current mission of FACT? What are the goals that we've set forth as to what we provide in the community, and in what ways does the community engage back with us in pursuit of those goals?
Sure. So that's kind of a multi-pronged thing. In terms of generally what community theater does for a community is, first of all, it gives entertainment to the community. So there's that portion of people just coming to see their friends and neighbors put on a show, right? Have fun together and enjoy that entertainment. From the production side of it, it gives people in the community an opportunity to work together, to collaborate together, creating something artistic and fun, have a lot of fun through the whole process, and then give something back to their friends and neighbors as well in that whole process. We've gotten feedback from parents that say that their kids have benefited hugely from that whole aspect of working together, being part of a bigger project, and have grown tremendously by engaging in that, whether it's being part of a dance chorus or a vocal chorus within a big musical, or actually learning lines and being responsible for that role and showing up to rehearsals on time, learning their part on time, et cetera, et cetera. So it's really a character building experience for everybody involved that way. So that's kind of what the whole experience gives to a community. Now, currently, with the recent health crisis, we've been kind of fallow for a few years. So we're struggling, trying to reinvent ourselves, kind of how do we get back on stage in a safe way? How do we get a community to come to a performance in a safe way and want to come together to do that? So, because there's just a lot of fear and concern about doing that. Just recently, we had a show at the FACC canceled because 3 other cast members, this is a national tour, got sick, got ill. So, and they had to shut it down. And so we don't want to deal with that, but how do we go forward with that as a possibility? So we're in the process of kind of reinventing what that looks like.
I see. And, I would double down on what you said about the fun aspect of it. It really is an avenue for people, regular people, and a diverse swath of people in the community to contribute what they feel they have to offer from a creative sense and just have fun. I got back involved in it after many years away from it when my 6-year-old daughter brought home the news that they were going to be casting James and the Giant Peach a few years back, and she wanted to be in it, and so I said, okay, well, I'll be in it with you. We did it together as a family thing, and of course now she's caught the bug. I've re-caught the bug, so much so that I was expressed interest in joining the board, and you all were kind enough to extend me that invitation. Having a good time with that. What are some other examples of collaboration within the community that we currently have going on the board?
Yeah, I'm really excited about this current project we're working on, and that is that we're producing a show. Part of the concern was, how do we put up a show when we can't guarantee an audience? And the issue is a financial one. It comes down to the numbers. A well-known musical has a royalty attached to it, a fee for the rights to use that. And that can run, for a well-known musical, you can easily play about $3,000 or so. By the time you put it on stage with costuming, set building, all the efforts to put it in, the initial fees for musical scores, et cetera, you can run close to $10,000 to put up a show. To do that, you got to feel pretty confident that you're going to bring enough of an audience in over, say, 4, 5, 6 performances to pay for that show. So, given the current situation, we weren't sure as a board whether we could guarantee that. So, you were talking about collaboration. I got to thinking about the community and some of the other talents I've seen in the community and thought, what about if we were to write a show, complete here? And based on some other experiences I had with some other writers, I got together with them and we decided to write a radio-style show, a la Prairie Home Companion, a full-scale, full-size variety show. And so that's what's currently going on. It's a collaboration in that we've got 5 writers that have spent 7 months working on this project. We've got musicians, local musicians online to come and perform on stage with us. We've got a group of musicians to be an on-stage band, creating a beautiful soundscape underneath the storytelling. We're going to have live on-stage sound effects happening, just like a real radio show, and it's really exciting because it's involving in the deep roots, completely created here, and that's just really exciting to me. I've never been involved with something on this magnitude in terms of collaboration.
I agree. It's been a lot of fun putting it together so far, and it's also been fun considering how, when we look back on this experience in the rearview mirror after it's done, how we can further take advantage and reap the various talents of people in the community for collaboration down the line.
Right.
And there's a number of ways that people can get involved, not just acting or singing or dancing or performing on stage, but there's a number of different roles that can be played in production, in promotion, art. What are some others that you can think of?
Well, the irony is that you've got a group of people that are dealing with financial and, like you said, artistic planning and promotional planning. And it typically, for theater, it's typically a group of actors that get together that want to be on stage. And suddenly they're trying to figure out how to build a set or produce posters and figure out how to promote something well. So there's a lot of opportunity to get a lot of different types of people involved that have different interests, even just from the business side of being able to develop it as a business, so that as a production company, which is what we are, we've got some sound business people behind us developing that side of it to keep us financially solid. bunch of actors typically don't know how to do that real well.
Right.
We're just trying to keep a ledger sheet as best we can so they don't go in the hole. But how to make it thrive, we don't really have a clue. We need a good business head around that. So there's a lot of opportunity for people to get involved. And we encourage anybody who's got the slightest interest to reach out, talk to any one of the board members, reach out to us on our Facebook page, and just say, hey, this is your skill set. I'd like to be involved. I want to help. We'll find a way. We're community theater, so we'll find a way to incorporate your talents.
Yeah, in being a community theater, it's important to stress that anybody who comes out in whatever capacity, we don't turn people away. We will find a place to put somebody, whether it's on a set crew or doing makeup or in a chorus or a dance line or any number of different things.
Now, it's especially true with our big shows. You know, the big musicals that have a big chorus number, big dance chorus numbers, etc. During the winter, we typically do a smaller show, like a dinner theater type show. And that's a typically smaller, and that it's a smaller cast. That's why my smaller, and it's typically not a full-blown musical. We have done some that are musicals, but again, not the full chorus, ba-ba-boom, extravaganza type of show. So in those shows, if you want to come in and we've got room for 8 people tops on stage because we're doing it at the Walton Club. We just can't handle 30 people that come to the audition and want to be on stage. So in that kind of an opportunity, we may ask you, is there another thing that you want to be involved in, or do you have other talents that you want to be involved in? Because we just won't be able to put you on stage. But in the big numbers, definitely everybody gets to be in the show.
Great. Another way that people can participate, actually, and I bring this up because it's been a topic of conversation at recent board meetings, is we do have some current board vacancies. And the people who do sit at that table at this point in time, myself, yourself, a variety of other people, they come from all different walks of life here in Fairfield, and the diversity is something special. And I think we would agree we look to expand that.
Absolutely.
And get diversity of ideas and some fresh ideas as well. Because there's really not any bad idea. Well, there might be bad ideas, but
I've had plenty.
but that's something that we hammer out as a board. Maybe something starts as bad, but it sparks the imagination of somebody who builds upon it a little bit here, and somebody else builds upon it there, and all of a sudden what started out as seemingly a bad idea is a show or some aspect of that show.
Absolutely.
So we would welcome anybody who wants to participate at that level to definitely reach out. You had mentioned reaching out to us by contacting a board member, of which there are several. Probably the best way that I can think of to tell people is to visit our Facebook page.
Right.
It's Fairfield Area Community Theatre. It's actually a new Facebook page that we've just come up with and sort of rebuilt over the last year. So it's got a fresh look. It's got, some regular postings just to keep people informed, entertained. It looks back into some of the past shows that we've done, spotlighted some of our board members. In fact, there was a Meet the Board segment that went up weekly earlier in the year when it first launched. So if you're looking for somebody to talk to personally, you can browse through the different videos and the different postings on the Facebook page. And if you know somebody there, reach out or just send a message through the Facebook page, and we'll respond to that.
Yeah, absolutely. And with that, even if you think you'd like to be involved but you haven't got a clue how you might fit in, let somebody know, and you'll be invited to a board meeting, and you can just sit in, see how we function, see how we do things, and we can talk to you, you can talk to us, and see where the match is. Don't be scared.
Sure. Another thing that I would mention about the board, and I mention this because I've heard you use this terminology before, and also Diana Flynn, the president of our board, is that we refer to our board as a working board.
Right.
You want to expand upon what that actually means?
Sure. And that when we do a production, there's so many elements that go into putting a show up. So the board members are all a working board in that we expect everybody to be involved with the details of putting that show together, within our areas of expertise, of course. You know, now that's not to say if you want to be on stage, you know, we'll certainly look into that possibility. But at the same time, if your expertise and you really enjoy doing graphic design, we hope that you'll jump in and help us, you know, in real time for that show. Be involved, get your hands dirty, doing what you love to do as well, putting that project together, putting those posters together, the program together, et cetera, everything that's within graphic design. I'm a contractor, I build stuff. So for a long time, since like day one, I've been involved in set design and construction. There have been some times when I haven't had the time to actually build the set, but I've taken the time to design it, put it all to paper, put together a team that can take that drawing and execute it. Oftentimes I will be there right until opening night, you know, with my screw gun in hand, you know, putting the finishing touches on the set, you know, in real time, working around the actors during the last few rehearsals before they open. So that's what we mean by a working board. You know, everybody's roll up your sleeves, get involved, you know, and even to the extent, if it's not your area of expertise, for instance, with Peach, James and the Giant Peach, we bought elements of a scene of the set from another production, brought them here to Fairfield, put them together, but they needed painting. They needed cleaning up and dressing up, and so there was quite a bit of painting involved. Everybody is invited to show up. We'll get you brushes, paint, whatever. Everybody just rolls up their sleeves and starts slinging paint, you know. So
right. No, I remember it was a fun experience. And you know, another thing I would add is that if you have an area of expertise that you're not an expert in, that you know, it's a good opportunity to learn something new.
Yeah.
In my personal mission right now on the board is I have this dream of directing a show at some point. I have absolutely no experience in directing shows, but the opportunity to serve on the board and to be part of a working board and to sort of see how the sausage is made, you know, is giving me the opportunity to get some ideas, get some understanding of, you know, the ABCs of the process. And it's my hope that, you know, probably not this year, maybe not next year, but somewhere down the line, I could be an option as a director.
Sure.
And where else can you get that,
Yeah.
other than the setting of like a community theater with a working board like we do?
Yep, absolutely. And something like that, what we would do is say, okay, you want to be a director? Are you interested in XYZ show? And you say yes. And then how about you be the assistant director, working under a director who's experienced, and you be their assistant. You're going to be shadowing that director, watching their every move, fulfilling all the in-between bits that they need assistance in, and you'll get a real-time working knowledge of what it is to be a director. And then you can go look back on that and go, yes, that's definitely something I want to do. I'm ready to do that. Or I want to be an assistant a few more times before I'm ready to take on the full responsibility of being a director for a show. You know, so we work with you that way.
Sure.
So.
Finally, there's one bit of good news that's come out of, well, I think there's been plenty of good news, but one that really stands out over the last year is the work that you did in attaining a grant for us. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that and what the money from that grant has provided?
Sure. So back in 2017, the FCC changed the rules for the bandwidth that wireless mics are allowed to be operated at. They needed more of the bandwidth for cell phones, basically, in a real basic conversation. Just cell phones were expanding, needed more bandwidth, and one of the smallest areas of bandwidth available was within the wireless mic industry. So the FCC said, okay, we're going to change where the wireless mics fit. We're going to put them over here, and where all the wireless mics fit, we're going to give them a 3 years sunset period, and then after 2020, that's it. They will be illegal to use at that point. So we had a stable of, I think, 11 microphones, and that have served us really well. They were starting to need some help. We had a number of pieces that were quite old. But we weren't anticipating replacing that system. 2020, we can no longer use that system. It's going to cut into ambulance services or church services or some cell phone stuff. You can get crosstalk, definitely a safety issue. Don't want to mess with it. Not to mention the risk of getting fined if you get caught. So suddenly we're looking at having been fallow for a few years and needing to replace our microphone system. So I happened to be visiting with the director of Fairfield Economic Development Association, just kind of bumped into him on the street. And we were talking about a bunch of different things, and he asked me about the theater, and I mentioned this project, and he said, well, ask for a grant. And I said, well, local grants are typically, $3,000 to $5,000. And he goes, well, how much are you talking about? And I said, well, you're easily talking about $12,000 or $1,200 per mic setup. So that's the microphone, the receiver, and then upgrading our system from an analog system to digital. That requires some additional equipment, some antenna stuff, etc. So in the end, we were looking at a $25,000 price tag, so 25 to 30, and we just weren't sure how we were going to go about that. So this director of FEDA says, just ask for what you want. Just do it. No, I'd never written a grant before. And I was shying away from it. Every time that opportunity is knocked on my door, I walk in the other direction. Somebody else knows how to do that better than I do, and so I didn't go there. But here I was, and I pitched the idea to the board, and everybody on the board said, great, Lou, when are you going to write it? So there I was, suddenly, I'm like, okay. So I got the application, and I just paid attention to the instructions and wrote the grant. One day our director, Flynn, she calls me up and says in a very serious voice, Lou, can you come over to my place? I need to talk to you. I'm like, oh my God, am I getting fired or what's happening? Now, getting fired from a volunteer organization is always an interesting query, but I wasn't sure where this conversation was going. Had I done something wrong? So I go over there, and she's all somber, and I sit down next to her, and she takes this piece of paper out and says, you take a look at this. And I'm reading it. We got the full grant. I couldn't believe it. So we were able to, I had already done the research right away. I pulled the trigger on ordering a whole new mic system, and we've got all the components here in town. I'm in the process of putting it all together in a usable format. And again, that's a really cool story talking about collaboration. It goes back to there again. So we've got a large grant from a local organization, locally money that's raised locally, given to us for this project, and I found a vendor locally that was able to get that equipment. So the money, just full circle, all right here in town, which is just awesome, I mean, rather than contacting some company in Chicago to buy the equipment or something. Sure. I found somebody right here in town that had the contacts necessary. So it's really cool.
Well, tip of the cap to you for your efforts on that. And another example of being able to learn something through the experience, right, to make a show, or in this case, a series of shows, to make them really go. In conclusion, I would say that we would encourage anybody out there who wants to participate and be involved in the community theater to please reach out to us through our Facebook page, or find a member that you know and reach out to them personally. And I believe we'll welcome you with open arms. Lou, absolutely. Any final thought?
No, just jump in and get involved. If you think it's anything on the edge that's kind of been rattling around back there, or even if it's just like you see a production and you're like, gosh, that looks like fun. It'd be kind of cool to be involved in that. On any level, just jump in and see how much fun it is. We have yet to have anybody who's gotten involved who afterwards didn't just say how much they enjoyed it. Usually the experience is they enjoyed the whole process so much more than they thought they would. And so by all means, get involved.
Get involved.